In today's episode, we've got James Merendino.
This is James. Yeah, stick around.
Welcome to the Tunepact podcast. I'm your host, the punk rock pop, Lee Pierce. And today we're going to be talking about the importance of music in film. And I can't even explain how excited I am to have this guest today. Today we are lucky enough to have writer-director James Merendino. James, thank you so much for finding time in your busy schedule to be on the show.
Thanks
Could
for
you do
having
us
me.
could you do us a favor and introduce yourself a little bit?
Well, I'm as you say, James Merendino. I'm a independent filmmaker. I mistakenly chose this career to make torture myself and make independent movies. And one of those movies was called SLC Punk. Was quite an old movie, a long, long time ago. I did sort of a spin-off some years later, and but mostly like I do dark comedy movies with a nihilistic bent and that kind of thing. That's sort of my jam. That's what I do.
So obviously, your love of music helped kind of form, carve out your where you're going to end up with filmmaking. Tell us about that journey. How did you get from being the kid you were to SLC Punk?
Well, I mean, it's hard to separate music from movies for me because I've always liked them tangentially. Um, I've always liked all kinds of music except for I don't like country that much. Some country, older country, I like, but like I didn't like the Garth Brooks stuff. But other than that, I pretty much like all kinds of music, and I was sort of. But also, when I was a kid, I was really interested in movies and also D&D kind of nerd, and I was into all that stuff. And I went through all the different stages when you're a teenager. But so I don't know how that leads into. Eventually, I guess. Okay, so I was in this band when I went to school in Italy. I came back, and I was in a band in San Francisco, and we were playing. It was a goth band called the Children's Hour. And I was the bass player, even though I'm a guitar player. I was the bass player, and we were doing the goth, strike me with your gothic pose stuff, and we started playing like all the shows, all the places around there. And I remember thinking to myself, this is because we're living so poor, and with all these guys in the same apartment, and it's kind of like I don't know. I like to be I like some of my privacy, and I thought. This is fun right now as a 19-year-old, but I'm so imagining when I'm, 50 or 60, will I look okay being like this? Though it turns out that those guys still look great doing that, but I didn't, at that time, I didn't think that. I thought, and I also really loved film, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just, as a director, you can be 60, you can be 90 and still be like, you can still do that and not people have that look at you and go like, you're not, you can still, what I mean? Like you're not trying to be like young and sexy. So, which is like sort of the goth thing, I guess. I mean, not that it is, but like, that's what I thought of it at the time. I was a kid. So instead I went down to LA. I got a job with a producer. I was doing errands for him. And then he made me his sort of, just sort of, I don't know, imp. Is that what it's called? A gimp? A gimp. Gimp or imp. I forget what it's called when you're basically his whipping boy. And he was a big producer, and but he showed me the ropes as a result, and and then I got a job directing movies, and I've been directing ever since.
Are those the stories you post about your job as an for an old timey producer?
Yeah, I post those stories.
Oh
I
my
probably I worked for him for about 600 days, and I probably have about 1,200 stories.
Oh, you need to compile a book or do it's like a compilation of short film. That's like the highlight when I come across the feed and I see it starts out about I worked for this old timey producer and I just know it's going to be a great story and it always is.
Yeah, he was. God, that guy's crazy. He was crazy. I love the guy. I loved the guy, and I hated the guy. It was just one of those things. But my God, I mean, and you know, much of what I say in those stories, I can't even really go into like the really hardcore stuff. Like I can only just do this sort of, well, he made me go look for a Pete Seeger album, or he wanted me to install this ridiculous piece of art in his wall, or else he would kill me. Like I can do that stuff, but I can't get into like the really crazy stuff. So I
The
don't
fact
want
that
to.
that's not the crazy stuff, I
No,
gotta
no, I
hear
don't
the
want to. I don't
crazy
want to go
stuff
there
because
because
those
it
are
gets pretty
great.
nasty. Like, you know, and then some of it just doesn't sound true. Like some of it just sounds like
Oh,
some of it's so ridiculously over the top. Like I was working for him, and he had this totem pole. He had this huge totem pole. It was like actually two that it was native. It was indigenous from First Nations people in Alaska. He had it taken away, a gigantic thing, and he had it by helicopter. They lifted it onto this hill behind his house, and it was like these two poles and connected with this thing, and it was it's an indigenous sacred piece, and he had it installed in his backyard, up on the hill, and he had a window in his. Like he had his bedroom, which was kind of like a tomb. It was black, all black. The whole room was black, and there was this black bed, and a black leather comforter. And so, and I would stay there when he'd go out of town. So I'd sleep in this sort of tomb. My girlfriend at the time would refuse to come over to the house, so I just was there alone in this sort of like, you know, Egyptian style, you know, death chamber. And I'm looking up, and there's a window that looks out at this you know, this piece, this tomb, this totem pole, and you know, it's like a sort of a skylight, but you know, it's way up high. The ceilings are like 3 stories high, and I noticed that it was felt like it was kind of not the same view of the totem pole. It was like felt like it was leaning a little bit, and I ignored it. And in the next morning, I heard like this explosion and rocked me out of bed. I thought it was an earthquake, and I went into the living room, and the pole had fell over, slid down the hill, and smashed through the living room. And so like he's out of town, so yeah, I mean, it wrecked the whole room. It had smashed. He had like Liechtenstein art and stuff, so like it had destroyed his Liechtenstein, and like it was just. And the huge coffee tables and stuff. It was a nightmare. And also, I knew that I would have to fix this, or he would come back and he would kill me. So I had 2 weeks to figure it out. And we did work it out. I called some people to try to help. They didn't know how to fix it. So his gardener, Mike Miguel, was an engineer from Salvador. And he was political. He was fleeing. You know, he was a political refugee because the government wanted to kill him and his brother because his brother was an activist. So he was there gardening for this guy, and he was a structural engineer. So he said, well, they had always put it in wrong, and he helped me sort out how to, you know, like get a helicopter in and put it back. And then we got people up to fix the wall, and he was sort of actually reinforcing that back wall. And then I had to get Roy Lichtenstein to come and fix the painting that he had there. It was crazy. It was crazy. And when he came back, I remember him coming in, and I was like, just as the painter's leaving, you know, and he noticed. He's like, Jamie, the paint's different in the room here. And I was like, I just wanted to refresh the painting. He's like, oh, good, okay, because the shade is maybe a little off. And, you know, like, and that was, and you know, I said, and if you know, next time you want to paint my house, ask me the exact color that you want, show me patches and tell me that, and don't fuck up again. And I was like, oh my God, like he was already still mad at me. So yeah, that happened. It's hard to write that one down because people are going to bullshit, but like that happened.
We need to do a reboot of Tales from the Dark Side, and it could just be your stories about working for the old-timey producer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Well, like, you were saying, for you, music and film is, I mean, it's a necessity. They're together. You can't really pry one away from the other one. So, like, when how do you go about, like, when, like, with SLC Punk or the sequel or any of your projects, especially those two, because music was an integral part about the culture and that what brought the movie to what it is today. But, like, how did you go about deciding what songs when it came to that?
Well, I wrote that script. Well, at SLC Punk, I guess I wrote that really fast, but I had music going through my head in my earphones that I just set stuff to. So, and then I just tried to get those songs, and I got pretty much, because it's punk. Punk music is pretty. Those guys are very cool. They don't charge very much, so for the most part, except for Rush and Van Halen. Van Halen actually gave us a song pretty cheap too, but that's because I was hanging out with Alex Van Halen, and he was just being cool. But like the punk songs are like cheap. Even like Minor Threat, he just gave it to me for free. But I had to like explain to him that I wasn't making fun of punk music to Ian. But I guess I just sort of, I was inspired by the rhythm of the scenes were inspired as I was writing by certain music that I was listening to at the time of writing. And I mean, I guess to a certain degree, some people do that. I don't know if many writers do that, but I do that. I listen to music when I'm writing, and to put me in the mood, and it ends up becoming like, inspiring the rhythm, because like, storytelling has rhythm, and and sometimes the music's there to augment it. I don't know that sometimes I think people use music as a crutch, or sometimes they use it as an appropriate extension of what the piece is. I mean, Scorsese, I think, is a master at taking popular music and putting it into his movies to sort of seem these like, put these scenes together. But then I feel like sometimes people don't know where to put music. They just stick music there, and it just because they don't. The scene felt empty. Because also I think sometimes scenes are great without music. Entire movies, like this, like French movies, have no music at all, and they're really they work fine. And the TV series that I did, called Great Kills, which is up on Tubi. Season 1, season 2 is about to drop in the next 2 weeks. So probably by the time this airs, it'll be up on the second season. I don't use any music. I use 2 songs by the Bridge City Sinners, who are, I love those guys. They were nice enough to give me the songs, so I use these 2 songs just for the credits, and then everything else there's no music because it's a mockumentary. So sort of the story is about like this film crew, which I'm the director, so I'm playing myself. It's part of like we had no money, so the whole idea of this mockumentary was to make it as look as horrible as possible, because we had no money, so we weren't able to control any environment. So we just sort of went to places with our actor, and we just shot. And if people wanted to come in, they just came in like it was a real documentary, and as if we were bad documentary filmmakers. So I had no dialogue. I just had basic scene structure. So the way I got performances was I would talk and ask questions to the point to where people forgot that they were, in a show. They thought they were just, it was real life. And it's basically us following like the worst, dumbest hitman on the planet in Staten Island as he goes on doing his hits, and we don't really care. And that's how that show goes. It's pretty funny. But it has no music except for those 2 Bridge City Sinners songs.
Bridge City Sinners are awesome. I first heard them, I think it was, they kind of popped up on social media it was their version of St. James Infirmary.
Yeah.
I think it was. And holy crap, I fell in love with that band. I got the cassette for that album, because it was, that was what her voice and the tempo changes in that song. I really dig Bridge.
Yeah, across the board, they're incredibly talented people. Like everybody in that there's no.
And they almost all of them have little solo things they do too, or side projects. I mean, every one of them's in doing 2 or 3 things at a time. Super talented.
The guy on violin. I forget his name on violin. He's like Stefan Grappelli level good. Like he's just really good. I mean, like, and they bring untraditional instruments, and they're all very good at it. And she, as a performer, she's amazing. So like they're just amazing. I love that band.
Yeah, they are absolutely incredible. So, when it comes to music in film and TV, how do you go about getting the rights, or the other way around? How does a band go about getting their music to independent filmmaker or a studio or something like that?
Well, that's weird. Okay, so like the one way is that I just hire we get music supervisors to clear songs that I put in there, and sometimes I don't get the song I want. I need to switch it out. Now I'm using popular music. If I want score, then I hire a composer that's going to make music for my movie specifically. I like to use a lot of popular music. My feeling on that for a long time has been, like people they go after actors that you're familiar with. They call them name actors in order to put to make people feel like they can relate or feel familiar because they recognize the actor, and then the actor's good and they're doing the scene. And I think that's why certain people people like certain actors, and those actors attract audiences. And I sometimes feel like if you get a popular song, you're not just bringing something that's appropriate for the scene. You're also bringing something that has a place in the world that is like that people are fans of. Like if I use a David Bowie song, people know the song. They will have a personal, emotional attachment to that song that they bring into that, so that the movie is tapping into not just this scene, but it's tapping into their own personal experience. So you're kind of putting it's like putting stars in the movie. So if it's new music that isn't popular yet, that people haven't formed an attachment, it's a little more difficult. So if you're a new band, you just have to get your music out there that people listen to it and they start to have emotional attachments to it. Because then when people grab the music for their movies, they're doing it for a couple of reasons. They're doing it because it invoked an emotional reaction from the filmmaker themselves, and it informs how they're telling their story. And then they want to share that experience and link that experience to whatever they're putting in that moment. So it's kind of complicated, but I have used unknown, like not unknown, like new bands before, and I do that. It's hard to do that though. I would say just focus on getting your music heard by people and get a following, and who cares about movies? It should be the other way around. It should be like people like me should just be like, oh, you're amazing. Can I use your music? It shouldn't be, oh, I want to be in your movie. It shouldn't go that way. It shouldn't have to go that way.
I gotta say I love hearing that because it's a music marketing podcast, so 95%, probably 99% of my guests are musicians, and these are the questions they want to know. So hearing it from a writer and director saying that it's not, it's a really cool take, and I love hearing it. That's why my best episodes always end up being someone that's not a musician because they have a fresh perspective that I haven't heard before. So thank you. That was really cool.
Oh, sure.
So when it comes to like you said, you'll have your headphones on and you'll be listening to music while you're writing. Do you ever have where you couldn't get a song for a certain scene, or when you started filming, you realize because a lot, especially with your movies and the music you choose that goes along with it, the music is almost another character in the film. So, have you ever had where it changed a scene, so you decided you needed a different song, or you rewrote the scene around the song?
I've been pretty lucky. I don't think that a song has been not right for a scene that because I usually pick songs that are also really cinematic, and so it always brings something to it. But I have I've switched out because I didn't get the rights, so they didn't want to give me the rights before, and so I sort of altered the editing a little bit. But for instance, there's in SLC Punk, there's this Roxy music. There's a Roxy music song, Mother of Mother of Pearl, and it's when like this he's thinking about his what's gonna like what his life is. He's trying to sleep, and he's there's a montage, and Mother of Pearl is there, and originally it was all the young dudes, and they didn't want to give it to me, so I went to Roxy. I went to the Roxy Music song, and they gave it to me, which is ironic because then years later on Punk's Dead, I was using Roxy Music again for a sequence in that, and they said no. So I got all the young dudes, and they said sure. So I don't know what happened, but anyway, that's what happened.
It just kind of came full circle in a real roundabout fucking way.
True.
That's pretty great.
And the songs are similar because they have this sort of tragic anthem, I guess, to them. But like, yeah, I think they're both really cinematic songs. So it didn't matter. I don't think either one mattered which one it was.
Well, and you like because in SLC Punk the best part was both the movies because the soundtrack it was also the background because for either generation that the movies are about for four, it was the soundtrack to our life, so it was literally playing in the background for whatever we were doing, so it wasn't always front and center, but you picked the most perfect songs and for every scene, and I just commend you because I've seen so many movies that were ruined by them trying to squeeze a song in because they got the rights to it and were excited, but it didn't even fit the film, and you just excel at that. I mean, you can almost just listen to the soundtrack and you're picturing the movie the entire time.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like I think that sometimes people I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's a part of like it should have been an integral part of what you were doing to begin with. I think shoehorning music in is really tough. It's like because like I don't think that you're thinking about the art. Sometimes I think they're just thinking about and also like there's just some songs that are just intrinsically cinematic. I always say like most of the Black Sabbath Ozzy days are like all those songs are cinematic. Like you can just imagine. As soon as you put on the like War Pigs, I can envision a lot of scenes going to War Pigs. It's just really cinematic, and then others just aren't that cinematic.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, like with your movies, I've always wondered. Does I see I'm like it's my SLC Punk. Like I said, is my favorite movie of all time. So I'm so excited. I've got so many questions for you. I'm going to drive you nuts. So like I mean, so if it came out was it 98?
It was released it went to Sundance in 99 and released in theaters in May of 99 and then released on DVD but the Germans jumped the gun and opened it in 98, so that's really the official date in Germany, even though I told them not to. I said, wait until do a simultaneous release with Sony, but they were like, no, Till Schweiger, we're releasing it now. I was like, okay, whatever. They're the financiers, so I was like, what am I going to say?
Well, what I loved was what, of course, didn't realize at the time when the first time I watched SLC Punk, because it came out end of the 90s, and we just had the resurgence of punk bands like Green Day and Bad Religion and Rancid. It was the first time a lot of younger Gen Xers were first even really hearing punk. Yeah. So, and it's funny, those are the bands that ended up the type that, Rancid stuff that were in the soundtrack for SLC Punk 2 is the music I was listening to when SLC Punk came out. And listening to that, though, like I was one of the lucky ones. Like I grew up listening to the stuff like what you had in that movie, though, Fear, The Stooges, Dead Kennedys, but for a lot of people, growing up, especially like I'm from the Midwest, so a lot similar to Salt Lake City, we don't have the religious aspect, but it's being different's not cool around this area, yeah. Especially back when I was growing up. So I really that movie really just drew me in because it seemed like us. So I was lucky enough to have cousins and stuff that turned me on to some of the older punk. But for a lot of the fans of that movie, might have been their first time hearing stuff like Dead Kennedys and Fear and bands like that. Did you intend to or was it just you putting the music in there that you wanted, or were you wanting to show people good music also?
Okay, so before that, up until that time, I had made movies for festivals. And that movie was going to be another movie for festivals, film festivals. And the film festival audience is a typically older audience, like boomers and baby boomers and older. So in 1997, I was thinking, punks were being portrayed in movies as like the guys on subways that like, have switchblades and like, assault women. And I was like, that has not been my experience at all with my understanding of punk. And so I was supposed to direct this movie called Anarchy in NYC, which was ultimately became Summer of Sam. It didn't work out. So I ended up saying, well, I'm still going to write something. So I said, and also like that movie ended up not focusing on punk so much. So I ended up writing SLC Punk. And for the reason of I'm going to show these old people what punk was. Which is why I cast as broad a net as possible. I told it is like, took your hand. The guy's literally looking at you from the screen. I take you and I say, look, not that I am saying that this is what punk is. I'm saying in the broadest sense, look, we're not killers. And we're not like, criminals. We're just, nerdy kids. And this is the music we listen to. So, so I was trying to endear the older people to these characters so they could say, oh, they're just like us. It's okay. Right. And they're not these evil people. So I picked music that I also was thinking like, well, these are broader appeal songs. Like, I mean, Ramones those are toe tapping songs. So, and I just didn't, so I was done and then Sony bought it and I realized, oh my God, punks are going to see this movie. This is going to be a nightmare. And because I was not trying to, it's going to seem very patronizing. I thought, I figured like punks are going to look at that and say, dude, like what the fuck do you know? In which case I say, I don't, I'm trying to tell these older people that we're okay. That's it, and I didn't, I don't know. So it's funny how it turned out because I never thought that punks were going to watch the movie. I thought it was for I thought it was just going to be another one of my indie movies that went to festivals and got reviewed and then went to the little art circle and that would be it. I didn't think it was going to go any broader than that.
See, it's not surprising though, but I mean, but for me, like, remember, honestly, the first time I watched it, I went into it going, oh, this ought to be good. And then it's my all-time favorite movie. And then, and you did such a great job. There's only 3 movies that make me cry. That's one of them. If I need a good cry, I put that on and watch the end. Every single time it's going to work. And just the emotions and stuff you got from all the characters. It was such an incredible movie. And then you went on and then the sequel as well. Tell us what your thoughts were going in with getting some of the cast back and tackling those characters again.
Well, I had written a script that was about Steve-O. And it took place in like 3 continents, 4 countries. So like it was really big. And it was going to cost $7 million or something like that. So like when I started trying to approach it, no one wanted to finance. No one cares about punk rock. So no one wanted to sort of get behind it. So I'd already started a campaign. So I said, well, then let's just make it more of a spin-off. And I would go with characters that didn't leave Salt Lake and keep it in Salt Lake City and leave the Steve-O thing untouched. Whether that's wise or not, is still is open for debate. But that's what I did. So obviously, like Devin was fairly happy to come back, and Jimmy Duvall is always happy to. I've worked with him a lot of times, and same thing with Michael Gorgian. He and I have worked many times together. He's a good friend. So like it wasn't too hard to get them to come back, and then. MGK ended up in it because my casting director said, here's an actor, Colson Baker, and I saw him, and he was very like, I love SLC Punk. He had really good energy. I thought as the side character of Crash, I thought it'd be really fun. I didn't realize how polarizing he would be because I really didn't know who he was. They're like, oh, how do you put MGK, this rapper, in? I just can't. The vitriol for that guy, I do not understand, but like it's there. Like people really don't like him. So like it kind of like. It I don't know. I put like people started off on the wrong foot with that, and it was weird. But like I still stand behind the movie as a because it's not a direct sequel. If it was a direct sequel, it would be Steve-O and that script that I wrote where Steve-O is saying like, so yeah, I didn't become a lawyer. What I ended up doing was, and then like I went to Harvard, and then all this shit happened. Like there's a whole thing where it's there. It's still Steve-O doing his thing, only. I just it was he has to go to Colombia to get this kid, Bob's kid, out of this mess. He gets arrested in Colombia, and he pretends to be a lawyer down there. It's it's just crazy. It's a crazy story. Mike's in Africa, and he's building schools, and he gets kidnapped by these warlords, and then he becomes friends with the warlord because he understands the guy's struggle. And they bond over punk rock because the warlord likes Ramones and he likes Ramones. You know what I mean? Like there's all these crazy, like it's a really, like it's a big story, and I still have it. I might just put it out as a graphic novel or something because like it's a fun story.
God, please, I need to see this now. Oh my God, I never knew it existed, and now I need to know.
Yeah, I mean even Till, who was going to come and do it, Till Schreiger, he's still alive. He's got this whole scene where he's in New Orleans. And it's 2008, so all his money's been lost by this bank. And he smashes up a bar and then goes in and robs this bank with a phone, and then gets arrested. And then Steve-O tries to get him out of jail too. So it's just like it's a fun story. It's just a funny story. It's just
well, and see though, doing SLC Punk 2 is not like you said, it wasn't a direct sequel. It still leaves it open. Who knows? Maybe that one will still get made someday. You never know what's around the corner.
I tried. That's why like Steve-O isn't appearing in that, because I wanted to keep that possibility open, because but I mean I've introduced Ross now, so I can still have Ross get in trouble in Colombia. I mean, like at least at the time I was thinking that, because he was still going to be, because that was the whole point, is he's going to go rescue Bob's kid who gets in trouble and gets thrown into prison in Colombia for inadvertently smuggling cocaine out of Colombia. It's a long story, but like he doesn't even he thought it was powdered sugar. He doesn't know
if anybody who's watched both movies gets how funny that is, because it could only happen to him.
Yeah, he didn't. Somebody said, "Here, take this powdered sugar back, and you get to have and like it's a free trip to." And he's depressed, so he goes there. Because somebody offers him this free trip to Colombia, so he just goes. And
he's always depressed.
Yeah, and he's sad. And then they said, like, now all you need to do is bring this powdered sugar back to U.S. and it's a free trip. And it turns out that it's cocaine, and so they put him in jail, and he gets really drunk in jail, and and he starts like bonding with everybody because he's really sad, and they all agree with him. And meanwhile, Steve-O comes down to represent him. Even though he's not a lawyer. And, he comes in and he just walks into this Colombian court, and it's just crazy. They all end up in jail. They, like him, Sean, everybody's in jail. I don't know. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. That's just awesome. Well, the second one was great. I think it's just as important as the first one. It was part of the story. And most of Gen X, I think we're all nostalgia fans and nostalgia freaks. So, I mean, first of all, the first movie having Matthew and Devin, I mean, that's two of the poster boys for Gen X counterculture movies, Right. So, I mean, and then getting to see Devin back as a cleaned up character. It's so ridiculous from where he was from the first movie, and the whole anything's possible. And like, it was so great. It was almost a love letter to the first film. And I just thought it was fantastic. Both of them are.
Thanks. Yeah. Some people don't agree, but okay. Thank you.
All right. That's all the time we've got for this episode. James, thanks for coming by. And everybody, stay tuned for next week for part 2 with James Merendino.
See you then. Bye.